Real quick, guys, I want to let you know about two events coming up that you may want to put on your calendar. The first is August 8th. This is the Nashville Men's Conference. It's going to be incredible. Absolutely incredible. Pastor Joby, Pastor Robbie, my buddy Drew Parker, I'm going to be there. So if you'd like to go, when you register, make sure you use code LION26 at checkout, okay? So I hope to see you there in Nashville on August 8th. The next event, I'm excited about this one. You guys have been asking for the Lion Within Us to do a West Coast event for quite a while now. Well, we're actually doing it. It's called Man Camp. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be in Colville, Utah. This weekend, you're not going to want to miss. It's September 25th through the 27th. I'll be leading a series of messages that hopefully are encouraging to you, and we're even going to have a church service right there in the mountains on Sunday morning. So guys, for both of these events, go to thelionwithin.us/events. It's pretty simple, thelionwithin.us/events. So put these on your calendars, guys, and I hope to see you in Nashville and in Utah real soon. Welcome to The Lion Within Us, a podcast serving Christian men who are hungry to be the leaders God intends you to be. I'm your host, Chris Granger. Let's jump in. All right, guys, meat episode. Let's get into it. You're going to love it, fellas. You're going to love it. But before we get to our guest, scripture of the week this week is Colossians 4, verses 5 and 6. Be wise in the way you act towards others. Make the most out of every opportunity. Let your conversations always be full of grace. Season with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Guys, I took some time. I unpacked that scripture at length in our spiritual kickoff episode. So go back and listen to it in your podcast feed. You'll be encouraged by it, I promise you. But that whole acting towards outsiders with grace, with salt, the words we use, fellas, it all matters, okay? It all matters so much. And if you enjoy those guys, again, I invite you into the daily spiritual kickoff at The Lion Within Us. So just go to thelionwithin.us and get started with that today. But this one, fellas, I'm going to tell you what, this is a big deal for the Lion. You know, when we started the Lion years ago, a little over 4 years ago now, coming up on 5, having conversations like this with this guest wasn't even a thought of a thought, okay? And he needs no introduction. You guys, Willie Robertson, CEO of Duck Commander, one of the driving forces behind the cultural phenomenon that you guys know as Duck Dynasty. So I just had just a great conversation with Willie. Again, you guys listen to the line, you know, I got connected with Al. He's just a personal friend. Just I think the world of him, love him to death. I've been blessed to go on the Unashamed podcast a couple times. I actually get to meet Phil and the whole family and spend time with them at their house. It's just unbelievable. So we've been working on this one with Willie for a while, and let's just say his schedule is quite demanding. So it took us a while to get to this one, but we finally were able to dial it in and get it locked in, and we had a really great time with this conversation. I mean, outside, you know, since Duck Dynasty, he's doing so many new things. I mean, he talks about that, and he's becoming one of the stronger voices out there for Christian leadership and entrepreneurship, and ultimately how to live unapologetically for Christ. And I mean, we talk a lot about his book, The Gospeller. I got it right here, fellas. Turning darkness into light, one conversation at a time. And that book, phenomenal. So Phil was able to read the manuscript before he passed. And that was really big to Willie. Willie, he's going to talk about that. So this book, highly recommend it. You know, it's going to be, obviously, we'll have a link out there for you guys. Add it to your list. But I mean, the stuff he's doing now, all writing, speaking, again, husband to Corey, father to his children. And he's just consistently using the platform that God has given him to point people to what matters most. And that's why this is just a fun conversation. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. Sit back and enjoy this one with my friend, Willie Robertson. Well, Willie Robertson, welcome to The Lion Within Us. How you doing today, buddy?
What's up, man? How are you? I'm fantastic.
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. As I mentioned before we jumped on, I worked with Al a bunch, and just got to hang out with Al a few weeks ago. I've been on Unashamed twice. So that was a lot of fun. I was back in 23. Got to ride with your dad to the studio.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun too, man.
Did you get to talk any on that podcast?
So the one with your dad, I did, and here's why. 'Cause Jace won't there.
Wait, did Jace have laryngitis? Oh, Jace wasn't there. Okay,
Yeah,
now
yeah, he
I'm
wasn't there.
able to speak.
It's funny, I was having lunch with Al the other day. He was like, "Yeah, man, I like it when you come." He's like, "Jason's not there, and we get to talk." So, yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. I got to hang out with Zach as well. Zach, man, a world of knowledge in that guy, right?
Well, yeah, stuff he thinks he knows, that's for sure.
Feel that. Well I definitely was
Roast
looking
everybody today, so
just roast them all, man, just roast them
roast.
all. Well, I love to talk with you, Willie, just to hear a little bit about, your personal walk with Christ. I mean, obviously with Phil, and everything is very public and the blind and all the stuff there. And then when it comes to you, like, what did your own discipleship journey look like? Like, how did you come to know the Lord? Because everybody's faith is their own. I'm just really interested to hear yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's as long as I can remember, growing up in it. My earliest memories are when Phil and Kay had gotten themselves, to the Lord and straightened out. And so, don't really remember any of the bad or any of the past or the stuff we may
Right.
be about. I guess Chase now had some memories of that, but mine was not. So mine was more just watching uh, mom and dad be together, watching Phil. Just had this fire for the Lord, and especially for sharing the gospel, studying the Bible. Um, so grew up with that. We moved down to the river. Those are some of my earliest memories of when we actually moved down there. And so life was great. Went to church all the time. Developed my faith really early and have faith in God. And um, I just wanted to be active and pursue that and um, share the gospel with as many people, studying the Word, loving the Lord, and thought I might be a preacher. That's kind of where I thought I would end up, as being a pastor. I think all of us did. Me, Al, and Jace had kind of around the same time. Al was older, and he'd kind of come back to the Lord. Jace and I are pretty close in age, a couple of years. And so I think we thought we'd work for the church. I think it was our only way. We thought, like, we're so excited about this and fired up. We want to do this, um, in an even bigger way. And for us, I guess, thought that meant working for a church. That was the best way we thought we could do that. And then had a little change of plans. Started dating Corey, who she and I were in the same youth group together. And pretty quickly, we decided we were going to get married. And so, but she was going to go off to college. And so um, I decided I would go to college instead of seminary. And I thought, well,
Okay.
backup plan. I can always do stuff for the church. And ended up going to college and then coming back, helping run her family business, particularly at Camp Chioka, which is the summer camp that they had built. Loved it. Started having our kids, and um, it was great. We didn't make any money, but we just had a great time to nurture the family, be together a lot. At the time, I ended up working part time for the church. I did youth ministry, I did college ministry, because it kind of paired well with the job I had at Chioka. And it wasn't until I was about 30 that decided I was going to go back into the family business, where I thought I would never end up, and kind of pull back down there. And so just even gained a more appreciation of Phil and kind of his faith that he was putting out there, and then decided I could probably help a lot with the business, and I could help in running that, to take that off his hands, and we didn't have to worry about that, and he could pretty much just focus on hunting, which he loved, obviously, but also preaching the gospel. And
Right.
traveled around with him and really just watched him and watched his message and watched how people interacted with him. We were Wherever he went, I was there, and I would run the booth in the back, and then um, we were able to get the business running pretty well, and that's when the television show came along, and then from there, obviously with the TV, and then we branched into so many other things that we can do. And now I've swung back to a lot of what I do is actually going around speaking, preaching, speaking. Kind of took that mantle. We lost Phil just over a year ago, and so yeah, kind of in the same vein of doing that and going around speaking. And then I think the Lord, what I kind of always wanted to do was to be able to speak to people, um, which is what I thought I would do through ministry or working for the church. And as it turns out, I'm able to speak to so many more people without being a preacher or pastor, um, in the lane that God had kind of set out um, for me, and not just me, but my family, my siblings, and now my kids, and doing
Right.
the same thing as well. And so I think as a family, he kind of had a plan. Seems kind of obvious now looking back. I think looking forward, it's always hard to see things. That's where your faith kicks in, and yeah, and just really the idea of working for God on this earth, however long we have. Losing Phil was just another reminder, as Phil would always say, of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The later he got in life, he would say, "Will, the resurrection is looming near." And so
Yeah. Yeah.
he knew he was getting close to moving on from this earth. And so just the idea to think about how long we have here, I can do the math on even how old I am versus when my father passed away. Law of averages, not that long. It's not that long that we're
Right.
here,
Right.
and I believe that eternity starts when we are with the Lord, and so eternity can start here. We're just on this earth. God's got us here working, needing us to do things and glorify Him, and I particularly have really studied and dove into the idea of actually sharing the gospel and winning other people, coming from the Great Commission that Jesus gave of making disciples of all nations, baptizing people and teaching people. Uh, Three particular things that I've dove into, and so that's kind of the message I've had for the last couple of years since I wrote the
Yeah.
book, and trying to get that out to people and maybe knock down some walls and um, some anxiety about that, or maybe how to do that exactly. And so I was able to witness that at a young age, with my father and others that I saw as well do that, and was able to take that there. So a lot of the things what I do now, try to put them in those three. Does it fit those three categories? Does it fit either making disciples, baptizing people, or teaching people? And a lot of these things will end up being, whether it's at a church or whether it's at a men's group, or whether it's at um, a business function that's not necessarily Christian. I love those because that's actually where
Yeah.
you can find a lot of people. But actually, when I show up to places, a lot of people will come that maybe don't even know the Lord or don't regularly go there because maybe I'm in their town or city and they want to come check that out. So there's still that opportunity to actually get the word out. Um, and then focus on for us it was faith, family, and ducks. Whatever the last one can be, whatever. But the faith is number one, and then our family is number two. And so just about all my family lives right here. We're really close. My kids are here, and so I'm able to see them a lot, pour into them, help them with their faith and the journeys that they're on, and then help with their families as well. Try to pass down the wisdom. That's what I wanted to do in my 50s was just try to pass down that wisdom. I think it's so important to pass that down, especially in this world we're in, where everything's so fast moving and
Yeah.
grabbing and going. I mean, just the idea of the family dinner where we sit and talk or cook or hunt together. Do these activities together, uh, share in that, and actually try to live a life outside of just the computers and texting and fast moving and travel ball and all the things that we get ourselves into that take up all our time.
That's right. Well, I mean, the busyness gets it. It's funny. When I was with Al, he's like, I see Willie the most. I'm like, where? He's like, in the airport. He said, we live next to each other, but our schedules with the speaking, what God's called you to, what God's called him to. He just like to travel. He's like, so it's really cool when we run into each other in airports and able to catch up and just have that fellowship. I thought that was funny when he was sharing that.
That is funny. Well, I don't know. That may say more about him because I've been in his backyard for about months, picking up limbs from this ice storm, and so I see where he lives in Louisiana every day. So he hasn't been there. I've been, but burn pile was right behind his house, but because they live also in Florida, Alabama. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Gulf Shores. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of bounce back and forth, and they travel a lot as well. But yeah, I think we're all on mission, and I think when we get together, it's fun sharing kind of where we've been and what we're working on, or whether it's a book or um, obviously their podcast, and I felt like um, that was something great that was passed down, obviously from the Lord and what we learned in the Bible, but also passed down even in our family of the traditions of those are the things that we feel like are most important. So when we're together, we're not talking about money or jobs or whatever it is, golf or whatever. And, we're talking about things that really matter, in the kingdom perspective. And we just did their movie. We were helping with their movie that they put out about their life, and so yeah, they're that way. Jason in the same way that stuff that they do for the kingdom of God. Now our kids are, obviously the same way. And actually both of Al's children uh technically work for me. So yeah, it's kind of a so I get to see everybody and keep up with the family through our jobs or whatever it is, but mostly talking about, what we do in the kingdom um and how exciting it is and sometimes hard, but always exciting and something new.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're doing such great work and making just a huge impact forward. I mean, when it comes to putting all this together in a book like The Gospeller, I mean, how did that project come to fruition? What did God lay on your heart for you to want to go down a path like that?
Oh man, that was a fun one. That was well, it was golly, the genesis of that book was so interesting how it all came together. Um I wanted to capture a lot of the stories that I'd had. I think as your kids get older and you'll tell a story or they'll hear something that be like, I never knew that story, and you're like,
Yeah,
wow, it was such a huge part, of my life. And you realize how quickly things just get left and they don't get passed down. And so I thought, man, I need to write all these stories down. And about the same time I was at a conference, and to be honest, I didn't even know that it was Christian. I was speaking, but I didn't know exactly what it was. I was just doing one little segment of this conference, and I think about television or something, and they had some breakout classes, and there was a speaker. Now I'd never heard of this guy, which says more about me than him, but his name was Lee Strobel, and I never heard of him. And he was doing a
yeah,
class on evangelism that I was interested in. I didn't know who he was, but I was interested in evangelism. And it was like an hour long class that he did, and I was fascinated. I was taking notes, and later when I met Lee, he said, "I didn't think you were paying attention because you never looked up." I said, "I was taking notes the whole time," and he just threw out a couple ideas there that I hadn't really thought about, like kind of like the ministry of evangelism, like and how perhaps it's lacking in even churches where we don't really focus on the art and how to do that. Like we have a lot of ministries, but actual going out and just sharing the gospel. I think besides just a general share our faith, how would you do that? How would that look? And so I went back and actually talked with the particular group I was meeting with as a church group at the time, and we didn't have that. And then the pastor called me about a month later and said, "Hey, you want to start that?" And I thought, well, I guess I stepped into this one if now that I've opened my mouth about it. Now I'm
right.
going. And so then really started almost like you were like teaching a college class on it. Like it was almost like what would that what would that look like? And so, man,
Right.
I started studying and um, not just the Bible, but also like how would you teach that or whatever to other people? And I will say it's, sharing the gospel is it's more I think it's like an art form. It's not science. And I think we've done that in the past as a church. We make it into a science, like well, if we write down what it is, put it on a track or put it on in a book, give it to somebody, they should read it and they should understand it, and then they should do it. Um, even if you can tell the same thing, and I'm not saying the message changes. I'm saying you could tell somebody something and somebody may go, "That's it, I'm in." And you can tell another person the same exact thing and they go, "Nope, not interested at all." And it may be for them, it may be some other way that needs to open up for them to hear that. Like if I said, "Hey, you could become a disciple of Jesus Christ and you could be part of a church," and that these will be a family that will help you through life. And a lot of people hear that and go like, "Oh, that's what I need. I need community." And that's
Right.
really appealing. But to another person, they go, "Oh, that's the last thing I want. I hate church. I was hurt in a church. I was, and then so the idea of a church may be what to some people may be awesome, to others may be um, painful, even to think about being a part of that. So, um, and then I'd read a scripture where Paul says, pray that I may proclaim the mystery of Christ even better. And so even Paul was praying that he could get the mystery of it out better. Like, I don't think anyone knew the gospel more than Paul and the experiences that he had. However, I know that he couldn't understand why people would, why he couldn't gain some people. And so he was still praying actively for that. So anyway, I listened to the thing with Lee. I talked to the church. I started this little class, and then in that class, which was Sunday morning, like after one of the services, that we would sit in there, and people would just come in there, and they had all kinds of questions, and a lot of people just wanted to learn how to share, what to share, where do you start. Some people came in that were just straight unbelievers. Somebody just sent them down to our room, and it was a fun room to talk to people. And this happened to be around COVID, so I wasn't traveling, and so I was just home anyway. And
Yeah.
in Louisiana, our churches were for the most part going. And yeah, so it was almost like the book started writing itself because I was able to hear kind of where a lot of different people and where they thought and how they thought about it. And so I started putting this book down. Originally, it had a different title. It had something to do with evangelist, I think, and then Corey actually found that word, which is a real word. It's an old word that means someone who shares the gospel either publicly or personally. Um, and it used to be like it was common in England and in America. It was a common term, not necessarily like a pastor. They would probably be called a pastor or preacher. These are people who just share. They were just known for sharing the gospel. They were called known gospelers. Someone like a Phil Robertson. That was he's not a
Right.
preacher, he's not a pastor, but a lot of people knew that he shared the gospel no matter what. And so, and I was like, that's perfect. And so we had the title, and then at this point, and then the subtitle was "Turning Darkness to Light: One Conversation at a Time." And that actually came from I was doing a marketing thing with a product I have for Buck Commander, um, and it was this kind of this scope thing that you can click a button, and when it gets kind of dark, it would light it up. And so I was looking at the ads for it, and it said turn uh, darkness to daylight or something, and I
Yeah.
thought that's it.
There
That's
you
the
go.
subtitle of my book. And the one conversation at a time, the first chapter starts off particularly about Phil's life because it just struck me like had that guy not went and had that conversation with Phil, had Phil not become a Christian, my whole life is a completely different life. I mean, completely different. And I thought, wow, I mean, that's how important that conversation was. And that's how important I think the sharing of our faith is. Phil, he did preach that message to Phil of the good news. Phil did respond. He did eventually change his life. Kay responds. Kay changed her life. And had it just affected our family, it would have been worth it. Like, nothing else happened. No Duck Dynasty, nothing. If it just kept our family together, which completely changed my life, Al's life, Jason's life, Jeff's life, our whole family's life. But Jeff probably wouldn't have been around. Um, so I realized, wow, that's a huge thing. So as I went forward, I thought, I mean, now hundreds of millions of people all over the world have been impacted in some way by the gospel through our family, through podcasts, television, movies, and all that. And I could trace all that back to that one conversation. Like,
Yeah.
you could trace it all back to ground zero right there. So then I thought, man, who knows when you're talking to someone, just the generational change that can happen. It really impacted me. And I thought, wow. And so then write the book, go through kind of my personal journey, which is, and actually it's the way when I talk to someone, it's kind of where I start, which is where they're at in life, what their journey looks like, um, ups and the downs. And a lot of times you got to deal with the past. In the book, I talk about John chapter 4, the woman at the well, where he goes into her past, and it's kind of uncomfortable, I'm sure, for her. Uh, and then she's freed from that, and in fact, so much so she goes back to her village and says, "Y'all got to meet this guy. He told me everything I've ever done," which to me would have been a negative, not a positive. But with Jesus, that became a positive because I think she was freed up from that because everybody probably knew her story anyway. I mean, it's a small town. Um, and so she was able to do that. The entire village comes to the Lord. Uh, they actually meet Jesus. They come to the Lord. So she was one of the first people to actually go out and share what she had learned from that encounter with Jesus. And that's the idea. Now, about this time is when Phil is starting to slip, mentally, and we realize something's not right with him. And I desperately wanted him to read the book because I was like, Phil
Right.
needs to see that what he believed in so much in life and what he spent his whole life doing. I at least want him to know that that came through with me, and this is what I'm putting out there. And so as soon as I had it written, it wasn't in book form yet. It was printed on we printed it on the office on a printer, and I fired down there to the river, where he was on his recliner. And I was like, this is Willie's book. And they read it, and he sent me a message, like that day. He had read it quickly. And he said, that's the best version of how to share the gospel I've ever read in my life. And, and this is what cracked me up because he knew the way sometimes Phil could get a little hardcore. And then he put, dot, 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 and you were so nice about it, which I thought was because I think Phil knew sometimes I
Right.
don't think what he did was characterized as nice. But he knew that I went through to make sure that I wasn't trying to offend. I was just trying to get people to understand it in a little bit different way than how he did. Phil was more hellfire and brimstone. I think because from where he came from, like he had lived such a rough life. I think he had this more like, you got to get out of this or whatever. And so the perspective I had was like, even talking to people who maybe go to a church and but they just may have never figured this out. And so just trying to make the case for, um, here's the message. If you need to respond to it, but then you need to take it to someone else. And here's why. Here's why it's important. It can change someone else's family. It can change someone else's children. It can change, I mean, it can change the world. And so,
Right.
see, people have been doing that. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how the book got started. And there was also a guy I met, who helped me with the book as well. And he had seen me do, because I'd done that, which I did this in my class. I'd done it on a whiteboard where I kind of write it out. And it's what I used to do on paper. If I'm sitting with someone, I'd just write it out on paper. And I just jot it down. And I have this little thing, how I do it on paper. And he had seen me do that and said, I've never seen it like that. And he
Yeah.
said, you should put that in a book because I've never seen anybody quite lay it out. Because it's kind of simple, but it kind of makes a lot of
Yep.
sense. And then, like when I would write it on paper with someone, if I'm just sitting there studying with someone, then I would give them the sheet of paper. And so as they go away, I don't know if I ever see them again in my life, but they have something to look back to,
Right. Right.
where they go, oh, what was he? You know how it is. You're going, what was that verse he said? Or what was this? And so, and I jot down things about their past or their relationship with God. If I said, do you have a relationship with Jesus? There's a guy I'm fixing to do this with actually tomorrow. The next day. And I'm going to ask him. He actually is very sick, and so I felt like better get this to him. And I'm going to write down where that is. And so if he tells me, yeah, I have a relationship with God, or I don't, if he says don't, I'll just
Right.
write it down, no relationship. Or yeah, I have, when to start, and well, I started when I was 7. Okay, well, how old are you now? 50. How's it been since 7? And a lot of times I haven't thought about it since I was 7, and so,
Yeah.
uh, you gotta kinda figure that out. It's no different than asking people, "Hey, are you married? You got any kids? Where do you live?" I mean, these are normal questions that we ask, so I just put those in the spiritual term, and, if they wanna hear it, great. If they don't wanna hear it, fine.
Right.
My job is just to get it to them, and, they wanna hear and learn more, and sometimes it'll take, sometimes it takes 20 minutes, sometimes it takes 2 hours, sometimes it takes 2 years, and sometimes it takes 20 years. Uh,
Right.
Bill didn't initially respond to the gospel. It took him about a year before he finally came back, um, to hear it again because he had done gotten himself in even more trouble. And so we're kind of like that. People need to, I think, Luke chapter 14, Jesus says, count the cost of, if you want to follow me, you need to sit down. He actually literally says, sit down and think about
Right.
this. I think sometimes in the modern world, man, they got this thing so quick. It's like bam, bang, bang. And I don't know that people understand what exactly they're getting in on. And
Right.
because, like I say in the book, you know, I think people may feel like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to tell other people about this. I didn't know that was part of the deal because no one ever told them. Like, no, you need to share this with other people. I make the case. What if it maybe it's not just part of the deal? What if it's the whole deal? The whole deal is about you got it, great. Now go give it, give it to someone else. And so I wanted to talk about that and talk about what that looks like to actually follow Jesus, to actually be a disciple. And I think Luke 14 can give you a lot of insight on that as to, if you're going to fight a war, when you consider, I mean, we're doing these
Right.
things now, right? Even in our country today, we're trying to consider, is this worth it? Is this war worth, what's going to happen? Is it worth it? Do we have enough people? Do we have enough stuff? You're going to build a house. You don't want to build half of it and then run out of money and everybody's going to come by and laugh at you, which I see have happened in people's lives. They're like, I'm following Jesus Christ. And then, 6 months later, they
Yeah.
look like they are, and then people are going, "Yep, that's what I thought." And so these are the things I think that as we live and trying to make these ideas practical, we can again fall under making disciples, teaching people, and baptizing. Falling under that is to get them motivated to actually go out and share their faith.
Yeah. Uh, And I'm so glad you mentioned earlier about sometimes if it takes 2 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, 2 years, or 20 years. I talk to a lot of guys, Willie, that they get really concerned. I think maybe concern is not the right word. They're hesitant to share the gospel because they're not seeing the immediate impact, right? They want to plant that thing and see the fruit right there, and that's almost holds them back. Or there's just a level of unconfidence. Like, what if I start sharing, spiritual stuff, and they ask a question about a verse that I have no idea about? Maybe they want to talk about Ezekiel, and that would just make me faint, right? So I know guys that are that way as well. So what would be your encouragement to guys that are trying to, to not, it's not always about planting the seed and seeing the harvest right there, but they're just being faithful and what the opportunities that God has put in front of us.
Yeah, that's one of the problems that, and I address that for sure. So it's like we disqualify ourselves. So we
Hmm.
want to disqualify ourselves from actually, like, that's not one. Is that my mission? Am I, was Jesus talking to us when he said that? When he said go make disciples and baptize people and teach people? was that to us, or was that those, 11 that was with him?
Right.
Just for them, you know? Um, and because a lot of it, because I talk about what exactly is our mission. What is your mission? And so when I talk to regular dudes, they say, well, I'm try to go to church as much as I can. That's usually always at the top. I try to go, not even go to church. I try to go to church.
Try to
Uh,
go. That's
I
right.
try to go as much as I can. I try to be a good person. And I mean, that's fairly common, right? That's what most people are like. They'll see me and say, I need to get back in church. Um, don't really know what that means, but so that is not what Jesus said. In fact, that's not even in the. That's not even in this. That's not a mission.
Right.
So you've watered it down. And if you're on the wrong mission, if you're thinking that's what it all is, because if you've got this down to where, well, I need to be sitting somewhere for an hour a week, I think that's what it means to be a Christian. You missed the whole point. Like Jesus, I know. Like it's not 1 hour. It's every day. It's every hour, all the time. Um, and so I've been trying to get people to not think like that and think about it. You're going the mission. So other disqualifications that men will put themselves in is they'll say, "Well, I don't know the Bible well enough, so
Right.
um,
I'm not a
like
pastor. I don't know it. Right. Yeah.
I don't know the Bible. I don't know what it says." Now to that one, I go to them. Okay, it's a big book. It's an old book. So how long have you been in on this thing? Well, 20 years. What have you done to help learn the Bible better? And oftentimes it's nothing, it's a guy that maybe he says he's a duck hunter, but you know, he doesn't go out and duck hunt, which is weird. That's what happens with, I feel like people. So, let's say a guy's he goes, I'll go to church every Sunday. He's like, I'm a Christian, but as you're sitting in a building, you're you're just sitting there watching someone else, right? You're not really doing anything. You just sit. Somebody else is talking. Somebody else has studied. Someone else is laying out the illustrations. Someone else is coordinated generally worship. They're singing. They're playing instruments. Um, you're just sitting there observing. So it'd be like someone saying, "Oh, Willie, I'm a huge hunter. Oh, what'd you kill this year? Nothing. I don't ever go. You don't ever go. I thought you said you was a hunter. Well, I watch you on YouTube. I watch you on TV do it. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean you do it. You're just watching someone else do it. Um, so if you say you don't know the Bible, then I would, in fact, in one of those classes, a guy told me one time, he said, I don't have the gift of studying the Bible. I said, that's not a gift. That's a discipline that we do. And so I think we
Right.
need to learn more. But when I share the gospel with people and go through a Bible study, I would say I probably use 7 scriptures. That's it. I'm not trying to get them to, I mean, they've got a whole life to learn Jewish history and all, the big old book and we can learn a lot from it. But the initial phase of it, there's no way I can only about 7 thoughts about all I can keep in my brain as well. And so I keep it pretty simple. Um, Jesus, um, most of it's in the New Testament, and there's just
Right.
things that I've committed to memory because I've studied every aspect, all those conversions, if you will, in the New Testament. What was said, what was done, what happened, and I'll read them some of those to see if they like for instance, like in Acts, like Philip runs into the Ethiopian uh, in a chariot, and he says, now the guy had been worshiping in Jerusalem, worshiping God from Ethiopia, and he was reading the book of Isaiah. And I probably would have missed it. I probably would have thought, well, he's fired up. He's not just a believer. He's a fired up believer. I always said that's the guy who went to church. Now he's at the stoplight and he's got his Bible out reading it. you may not ask that guy any question. You may say, amen, brother, and I think that's a mistake that we make as well. We just ask bad questions. Like we ask people, do you go to church? That's our question usually. And I don't know if we're wanting to hear yes or no. I really don't. Like, do we want to hear yes? Because if we hear yes, then we just go, oh, sweet. Awesome. That's
Just move on. Right.
Or do we want to hear no so that we can invite them to where we sit, and then hopefully they'll come in there and hopefully they'll hear something and they'll see how awesome this thing is. When a lot of people will walk into our buildings, Chris, and they don't understand what exactly we're doing. It's weird, we're crying. Their eyes are closed, and they don't. We have a whole nother language that we use that a lot of people in the world they don't understand. They don't understand
Right.
the good nature of the. They don't understand what the Holy Spirit is. They don't know what the book of Matthew is as opposed to the book of Malachi. They have no idea. We know that because we grew up in that, but we're hoping they'll see that. And so when he sees the guy who's coming from Jerusalem worshiping, when he's reading the book of Isaiah, he asks an awesome question, which is, do you understand what you're reading? To which the guy says, how can I unless someone explains it to me?
Right.
And that's a layup. When someone says that, I'm like, oh, buddy, let's go. And it said he started with that very passage in Isaiah, which is important, why we should know the word. What if Philip would have went, oh, shoot, where is Isaiah? Hang on, I don't, but he knew
Right.
that, he knew it well enough to know he could start right there. And all it says is he taught him the good news of Jesus Christ. So I know from other passages, I know what that meant. He told him that Jesus died, was buried, and was raised. And then they see some water. He says, there's some water, wash them to be baptized. He gets baptized and goes along his way. Very simple. Now he goes to Ethiopia, and I know today Ethiopia is a predominantly Christian nation, which is
Right.
there's like 80 million people there. So that's how big it can spread, and that's how big it can get. So that's one way we disqualify ourselves. I don't know the word. I'm too shy. I don't know that we should, I'm not comfortable with it. We all kind of things that just kind of say, I don't feel like doing that. If you go to church a lot, maybe you'll say that's not my gift. I have things in other areas or whatever. I think everybody should, even if you can only start with your own story. If you can only start with, well, here's what he's done for me. That's the blind guy. Jesus healed the blind guy. They came up and said, hey, who healed Jesus? I don't know. I was blind. Now I can see. Who did it? Jesus. That's all I know. And
Right.
if you can just start there, you start there. But I think once you realize the importance of it, once you get into those conversations, it will cause you to study more. It'll cause you to read more. It'll cause, when someone asks you questions, you'll want to know the answers. And sometimes, Chris, I just jump into things because, I was doing this the other day. I thought I was cooking something. And I thought, I've never cooked this before. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to just try it. And no matter what, I'm going to learn something or it's going to be awesome. And I'll start on that journey, and then I'll get past the uncomfortableness of, I don't know how to cook this.
Right.
I remember what it was. And I just, bang. I read a recipe. I had a recipe. I read it. I watched something on YouTube. I may call somebody else. How did you do that thing? And then I dive into it. And then once I do that more and more, especially like cooking or hunting, the more I have that experience, the more I become comfortable with that going on.
Right.
Because I know it's like other things. So if like cooking, I love to cook. So it's like once you can cook a lot of base things, then you can start going into other things. And I see something there, or taste something I like, and I'm going to try that. And I really did the other day. I said, I'm going to try it, and we'll see. And it turned out good. And I'll add that to my list of things that I know. And so sometimes I think we just have to start the conversation. Yeah, I think God will nudge us to, hey, say something to this guy. Just like that Ethiopian.
Right.
The Holy Spirit moved Philip to go there. And I think there's so often that we have a nudging to say something, and a lot of times we just don't. We suppress it and they're like, or you start overthinking it and thinking, well, I don't want to. And the other idea is that you shouldn't mix these things. I don't want to be, um, I can't do this at work, or I can't,
Right, right.
I think that's just a lie. That's a lie from the devil. If I were the devil, I would say, here's the deal. How about you can become a Christian, but keep it to yourself. That's your personal, you know, that's your personal relationship, and keep it personal. Um, well, that's a fantastic deal if you don't want the message to get out. And for some
Yeah.
reason, I think a lot of us have bought into that. And I think the language that we use is important. Like even saying I have a personal relationship. Well, generally when I hear something personal, I'm like, if someone said, "Hey, that's personal," I'm gonna quit talking about it, because even the language, or even saying, "Do you go to church?" or "I go to church." We don't go to church. We are the church. We don't go there.
Right.
If I go there, well, then I'm going to leave there, right? And then I think people feel like once I leave that place, once I leave the church that day, that morning, well, now I'm into like my regular life. And it's
Right.
somehow that becomes a different life
Separated.
than what I
Yep.
did on Sunday morning. And I'm telling you, that's not it. When you start separating those lives, going, "Hey, this is what I do in normal life," and it just starts a bad pattern of, your kids will see that. They'll be like, "Mom and Daddy don't act like they do Sunday morning. They act differently than they do on Fridays," and that can just create a whole host of problems as well. So I think even the language that we use is important, and the terminology we use to be able to do this and be serious about it.
Is there a better conversation opener then than do you go to church? I mean, what do you think would be the most effective way to try to get the conversation going so that we can actually, we don't want to be confrontational, but you got to get the conversation started. So any advice there?
Well, sometimes you can be. Sometimes you can you just think about the situations. If you There's times I may have to have a confrontation with someone, not about the Bible saying in life. I may have to say,
Right.
"Hey,
Yeah.
if you're messing with my kid," I may say, "Hey, that's fixing to happen." And so, and sometimes even if it's dangerous for their own life, it's amazing how we see people that are literally destroying their lives, and just don't, we're like, I don't know what to say. Well, the woman at the well started with, "Can I get a drink of water?" So that's how that one started. Um,
Yeah.
like the whole village comes to the Lord. The conversation started with, "Can I get a drink of water?" Now, I think Jesus did. He had taught her a lot just by being kind to her. They weren't supposed to be talking. They were from you know, two different areas, and probably shouldn't be hanging out together. The man and woman, none of it was right. In fact, she's like, "Should you even be talking to me?" But I think by showing her the kindness, he had already taught her something, that I care enough about you to even speak to you. And then he just simply asked her for a drink of water. And then as that conversation went, she's looking around at the worldly things and going, "Where's your pail? Where's your, if you want water." Then he starts talking about living water. So he goes into the spiritual. She has no idea what he's talking about. And I think that's important for us. Don't expect people to understand exactly what these spiritual things are. They don't know. And so
Yeah.
that's for us. And the more you can see them, then when he got to her past, and that's when she, that's when she kind of gets religious, which is funny. When I talk to people, it's funny. Then they'll start getting religious as well. All of a sudden, they'll get religious. When she's like, "Oh, I can see you're a prophet," and then she starts spouting all some stuff about what she knows about, Jacob, and stuff that she's heard. And so you'll hear that a lot with people. They'll start trying to regurgitate something they heard in church one time. Like, "Well, I think it's this or that." And so I think the conversation can start with anything. Now, a big part of it, Chris, is you've got to listen. So sometimes I think we talk too much, and we can just listen. We can listen. When I hear something, like when he said, "How can I understand this unless someone explains it to me?" So, well, the particular guy I told you I'm going to talk with, uh, I've heard from a friend. I know this guy, but I actually heard from a friend. He's having major health issues. Uh, he's in so much pain. And in fact, he told his friend, "I don't know how much longer I can live like this." Well, when I heard that, I thought, is it possible that I can go see him and talk to him? And so when I talk to him, we'll probably talk about his health. We'll talk about where he's at. We'll talk about how he sees life. And then I'm going to ask him, has he ever thought about, does he have any sort of relationship with God? Has he thought about, because he's probably thinking about that more now than ever, what's beyond this life? What happens
Right.
next? And so
Right.
if we can get in those kind of terms, then we can, now again, I'm not just going to be firing out scriptures at him. I'm just going to talk to him and show him that if I show up to his place, I'm going to show him right there that I care about him. Because
That you
believe
care.
a lot
Right.
of people aren't showing up to, when he gets to places like that, it's uncomfortable, and people don't even. You just want to be out of sight, out of mind. You don't even want to think about that. I think the fear of death and us getting sick and dying, we just try to avoid that, right? We were like, oh no, I don't want to think that way. It's too sad. And so I think when we go in there, um, and so we listen. So I listen. A lot of times people will open up, or man, my marriage is in the toilet. You could hear that at work. It's like my wife. I don't, or it could be obviously sinful things. So like if you go to Galatians 5:19, where he talks about the acts of the sinful nature, the acts of the flesh, and he lists them you know, like I was playing golf yesterday and I heard these come up. I heard a couple of things. I'm like, oh, there's some sinfulness going on. Now, when I hear that, I don't say, he who hath done the, like I just
Right.
then where I know kind of where it's at. That's why I also enjoy not being a pastor, because I can hear that I'm able to hear him, and so I can sum that up, and then I can offer through that as whatever. So when you said we don't necessarily get confrontational. Well, we could if they were like, I'll tell you where I'm fixing to go. I'm fixing to go do this, this, and this. And I may have to confront and say, man, you're fixing to destroy your life, or, this is sin and this is that. So it can be any of those, um,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can just start with the most basic conversation. When I said it could be 2 hours or 2 years, you can have conversations with people for a long time. In fact, the guy that I asked, the guy said, hey, can I go see that guy? And then he starts telling me where he's at. He says, I try to read the Bible when I can. And I was like, he's going to be able to hear this as well. And so when the gospel goes out, he may actually be the one that obeys it. And so I
Right.
did that a lot. Like there'll be somebody, I'll be talking to this guy, but actually this guy listening, I may be going after him as well. And so I
Yeah.
use this guy as a way to get that guy as well, because they'll hear that. Um, and you just remember, Paul says, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it has the power of salvation."
Right.
So the power's in the gospel. It's not in us, and it's not how cleverly we delivered it, but the power's in there. We just got to get it out to people. So that's where the power's at.
Yeah.
It's the matter of, I mean, we can people can see our lives and be like, man, I could, I'd rather be like that than the mess that I'm in. And that can be a
Yeah.
testimony in and of itself. So, um, and so I just want to have all these tools and all this experience, and where I've seen this, I'm like, I heard this one time, long time ago, someone came at me with this, this one particular thing. And they can be, people are different. That's why I said it's more like an art, because people's lives are different, their experiences are different, their problems are different, where they're at. I mean, people in America are completely different than. I mean, you think about it. Like a lot of people in America, you start talking about life beyond this earth, and it's so much better. Well, a lot of people in America can go, really? Life's pretty
Mm.
good. Got all the
Yeah.
food you want, got a nice place. Well, you go over to Yemen and preach that. You go over to North Korea and preach that. You go to areas of China or Somalia. I'm sure they're going, I hope there's something better than this life. This life is
Yes.
awful. It's tragic. I lost all my children. I got my hand chopped off. I mean, so I think people all over the globe, people have completely different experiences, in life and how they do that. So again, the message it's still Jesus, it's the gospel, it's what he did for us. Um, it's just what is the best way at the best time to be able to get that out, or when people are searching and looking for that
Yeah.
and being
It
ready.
almost feels like too, at least I'm feeling it, I'm hearing it from the people I'm talking to, that there's a surgence. People are looking for truth, and people are looking for, something that they can put their trust in outside of themselves, because the news, the media, politics, all that stuff's just letting us down. What do you think's driving that? I mean, I think as it's more and more people are being receptive to hearing the gospel message.
Well, I think a lot of things about that. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say that's why Paul says always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that you have.
Right.
Always be prepared.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we read. That's why we do this, is because we want to be prepared. We don't want to be unprepared to give an answer. Like, are you prepared to
Right.
tell people what the hope you have? I don't know. I never had thought about it. Well, you're not prepared. Paul says always be prepared, because you never know when that may happen. As far as the people, could be our perception, as because we are spiritual people and we see that, and so we're going, wow, people already. It could very well be the emptiness and the um, I think the emptiness of what people have seen in the world. I believe there is a lack of faith, hope, and love right now, especially in our country. We have lost faith in God for sure. Look at the numbers on that. So you lose faith. When you lose faith, um, and think about what else we've lost faith in. I think a lot of people have faith in the government. It's probably my lowest ever of how much faith people have. People lose faith in the police. They lose faith
Yeah.
in the court system. They lose faith. We think about all these areas, big corporations, big entities that we thought, oh, we can put our trust in that. And I think COVID aided in that. I think a lot of us looked up, what the heck's going on here? And so we lost a lot of faith. Well, when you lose your faith, then you're going to start losing your hope. And then you're like,
Right.
I don't really have hope I don't even have hope in our country, um, which is something I think, 30 years ago, we'd never imagined saying, we're like, our country. And a lot of people have lost faith in that. And then when you lose faith and hope, you're going to lose love. And if you look around what's going on now, there's not a lot of love for each other. In fact, there's a
Right.
anger towards each other. There's a hatred. There's a bitterness. There's uh, a lack of compassion even. And the more we see, I think social media has done that, the more we see and know about other people and groups of people, then we know we don't like them. We're like, oh,
Right.
these people, they need to get, you know, go fall off a cliff. And so that's where we are. I mean, that's where we are in our country. And so then you lose compassion. So we've got to get back to, you've got to love people. And that's from
Right.
Jesus was still loving the people and praying for the people and talking about the people, even the people that put him on the cross. And so I think even a lot
Right.
of believers have lost that, and they're like, well, it's time to circle the wagons, take care of our own. And so therefore I think a lot of that could lead to why people are going, okay, maybe there's something to um, faith, maybe there's something to Jesus, maybe there's some we gotta see something, because everything I thought we put our faith and hope in is, you saw that in COVID, like, people that
Right.
were defined by their careers and their jobs, and then it just went, whoa, gone.
Yep.
Their money that they had, gone. I mean, all this identity that people wrapped themselves up into, and I mean, it was a few months, it just went gone. And
Right.
and the suicide rate goes up. People are lost. Because that's the emptiness. That's what the world has to offer, and it's so shallow and it's so temporary. So it's not there long at all. I mean, it's just not there. There's nothing there. Um, and then you see sinfulness and all that, and it rises up in people, and greediness, and all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, immorality and sex trafficking. I mean, just
Yeah.
awful stuff, awful stuff. And so, and I think people will look and say, you'll see this thing swing back, and there'll be the faith. It may be hard times to come, and maybe more burden of that. There may be some judgment in there, some God judgment in there as well. And let's say, and
Yes, sir.
that's enough of that. We definitely have read that in the Bible, and so I think us as believers, though, I think you got to remember, and that was kind of the message of my book. We're not called to be bearers of the bad news, and I think a lot of Christians have we think that's what our calling is. We're like we got to tell everybody how bad that this country is going to hell in the handbasket, which may be true, but we were called to be bearers of good news. We're supposed to tell
Right.
people the good news, not just the bad news. But people are going to sit down on their computers and on Facebook and Instagram. They're just going to rant and rave on how bad everyone is, and this group's bad, and this, and we've got to get back to we're the ones telling people answers, solutions, good news, positive
Right.
news. That's our job. It's not just to be, like Christians have deemed themselves the ones who we're gonna tell everybody how bad it is. We've got to tell people what can be good and where we found the goodness in us, which is through Jesus.
Amen. Amen. And guys, you got to get a copy of it because it's a great way. It's a great resource. Hats off to you, Willie. Before we wrap up, I'd love to do a quick lightning round with you. Just have
Sure.
a little fun at the end here.
Sure.
All right. All right. Well, favorite hobby. What do you enjoy doing for fun right now, Willie?
I mean, actually, right now, so it's summer, so it's not hunting season. I do play golf a lot, but I love working outside, and so I've been cleaning up a bunch of limbs, and um, I have a lot of burn piles, so I'm actually burning a
There you
lot.
go.
I like working outside and getting out in the sun and working with my hands and working with the land. So I was doing that early this morning. I got my fire going. As soon as we get done, and we'll be back on it again.
There you go. What is your favorite duck call? I'm sure you get this one a lot. What's your favorite one?
My favorite duck call. Well, I can I've got a lot of them. But, I think something that um, probably like the duck picker, just something that um we're kind of in close, nothing super loud.
Right.
'Cause I want, something where you can just make the call where you're trying, the ducks are hopefully wanting to come in, but, uh, you know, something that's pretty neutral when you get them down in there and you can speak to them really closely.
Yeah. That's cool. Now you got the four brothers. Rank them for me. Who blows the best duck call down to who's the worst?
Oh, Jace is going to be the top for sure. Jace is the top because Jace spent the most time out in the woods. And so,
Right.
Um, even growing up, he was just ate up with it. Mostly I deer hunt, so I'm a deer. I started another company called Buck Commander, so I love to be out doing deer. I do a lot of pheasant hunting. I'm more of a I like to be in different. I'm not just solely duck, which
Right.
Jason does. The worst. I don't know. I mean, I think all of us can blow it. I mean, we could all call a duck in there.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Now you mentioned you got a passion for cooking now. What's your favorite thing? What do you enjoy on the grill?
Uh, actually, I don't grill a whole lot, which is so interesting. I cook all the meals in my house, so
Okay.
yes, I'm the sole cook at this place. Corey, I believe, cooks when I'm not here. I'm not sure. But so uh, the um, my favorite. I love cooking. Probably deer backstrap. Um,
Yep.
so I do I think I'm do it soon. I've got something I got to pull out and. But yeah, we do that as soon as kill the first deer of the year. We'll do that, which I actually deep fry, batter and deep fry. Then I stack it up in a pan and steam it in the oven, usually with onions and apples and maybe some garlic.
Really?
Back to yeah, because you think about it, I'm killing like usually older, more mature big
Yeah.
old bucks, and so I've got to get that thing tamed down or everybody likes it. But it's
Yeah.
family's favorite meal. That's what they love more than anything. I make a little horseradish dipping sauce with it. And it's a
Sounds awesome. Now, when you think about God, Willie, what's your favorite thing about him? I love asking this question to see where people where it lands.
ah man. I think that I love about God is this that He um, he doesn't just look to the past. I think I love the redemption, where he can see the best, what we can become, and the best in us, even we can't even see it ourselves. And so I love that. I love it when people have learned that and they can see that as well. I mean, we're all failed and broken, and we can live in that, wallow in that. But I think God sees He sees what we can become, and especially Jesus, once we've been redeemed through Him, and He makes us perfect. That's just what I love about it. I love that. I love that's it. Not it's not this long road of what you have to do and all this.
Yeah.
Like it's been done, and let's go and let's get motivated to work for Him.
Amen. Now, what's your least favorite thing about the evil one?
Uh, the deception for sure. Just all the deception and just so many different distractions, and but it's all in ways to deceive. And so, um, especially the deception and it's even things that seem good, like that seem positive, but they can be being deceived and distracted. And you feel like, oh, I think I'm doing the right. Uh, I'm going to school. So I can get a job, and so these are things that we're like, yeah. And you can look up and you spend 30 years of your life doing all that, and you're like, that didn't, none of that meant
Yeah.
anything. And I
Yeah.
feel like the one's laughing, going, I got you on that one. Also, you could try to, move
Yep.
up the ladder and have more stuff and do all this and just
Yeah.
distracted from doing what God wants us to do and what's really important.
Where do you think God's calling you to next?
Oh, man, um, I never know, man. I try not to. If I try to overplan everything, then I gotta leave room for the Holy Spirit, for God to work. And I think a lot of times, man, we plan this stuff out. We're like, God's in control, but I can tell you what my next 4 years is gonna look like.
Right.
If you'd have told me 20 years ago where would I be in life, I promise I would have woefully underthought where God was gonna
Yeah.
have us, even as a family. And so, um, I could have been had an average job making a average salary and thought I'd been, doing everything I could do. But, God opens up doors and opportunities and you jump through them. You look back on, whoa, look at what happened here. And so that's why I try to set all my goals to, um, to, and then also it can go away like that. I mean, stuff
Right.
happen and again, that's more of the identity. I don't want my identity. I want it to be in God and what His plan.
Amen. Last question for you is what do you hope the listeners will they remember the most from our time together today?
I hope that they start looking into how they can share their faith more. Um,
Yeah.
what that would look like in their life, whether they're doing it or not, or whether maybe if they can brush up on it. So that would be awesome if that were to happen. And so if we get this whole army of people, of believers out there, a guy said one time when the sermons come from the pews and not just the pulpit, that's when revival can really happen. So yeah, that's what I hope they remember.
100%. Thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to share today, sir?
I think I got it all in there, man. Great talking to you, Chris. Enjoyed it.
Willie, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your time today. Thank you. Fellas, how awesome was that? I still can't believe that Willie took the time out of the schedule to come on. So grateful, so thankful for him for doing that. Hopefully, you are encouraged as well with the message that Willie brought. And look, if you struggle with the gospel and presenting the gospel, I'm telling you, fellas, grab a copy of this book, The Gospeller. He really breaks it down systematically to help give you an idea and a framework to work from. And just ultimately think about the question of the week that we have this week at the line anyway is like, but how are our actions specifically reflecting Christ to the people around us? Because that's it, fellas. I mean, we are the church. I mean, Willie and I, we talked about this. We are the church. So it's not just a Sunday morning for an hour thing. But when it moves from the pulpit to the pew, as Willie said, so where the guys in the pew are the ones proclaiming the gospel, it could change the world. I mean, just think about that one man who shared the gospel with Phil and the ripple effect. And it hangs in the balance. So it could be one person. It could be your one more that's on your heart, that if you shared the gospel with them, the ripple effect could change their family tree forever. It could break generational sin. It could just, you never know how God could use you in advancing his kingdom. So, guys, lean into that. Just lean into it. If you need support, if you need encouragement, reach out to the Lion Within Us. We're here for you. We'd love to walk with you. We'd love to just speak life into you and just be a source of encouragement for you as you walk wherever you are on your discipleship journey. And you may have been walking with Jesus, uh, forever, or you may be new to the faith. Wherever you're at in your journey, we love to support you. We love to encourage you. So the lionwithin.us is where you find us at, guys. Share this one out. I would definitely ask you guys to share this one out. Um, hit the share button, send it to your men's group. Stuff Willie talks about, we don't want to hold it in here. We definitely want to get the message out. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, comment. We'd love to have your comments. We respond to all of them, guys. So please share your comments with us. Connect with us there. Go to Facebook, Instagram, all those places as well. We'll be sharing some stuff from this conversation. But guys, this is all about honoring and glorifying God and putting him where he deserves. And that's at the front of everything that we do at the Lion Within Us. So just super grateful again for Willie for coming on. Thank you guys for listening. Ratings and reviews help. Seriously, guys, that helps big time. Just sharing podcasts out, whatever it takes to get the message out. Thank you so much. You can also go to the lionwithin.us, sign up for the weekly roar. We have a weekly newsletter that comes out every week, guys. It's not a bunch of junk. I actually write the newsletter, so it's not, something that we just kick out. It's just a simple reflection, but you may be encouraged by it. Again, we're a 501c3 right now as well at the Lion Within Us, guys. So if you like what we're doing and you would like to support, so just to support the mission to help equip and serve Christian men to be the leaders that God intends them to be, go to the lionwithin.us/donate, and we'd love for you to be a supporter with us along on the mission that we're on. Okay. All right, guys. So get after it. We'll see you next time. I'm looking forward to the Fun Friday episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. I'm telling you, because we're going to have this member spotlight. You guys are going to love this member, particularly you guys who are first line of defense out there. I'm not going to give you any more insight. I can just tell you one thing. It was a fun conversation with him. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. So thank you again for hanging out. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. And you know what's coming, right? Keep unleashing the lion within.
It's time to stop battling pornography, lust, and temptation alone. We're done sitting on the sidelines, seeing shame win, and hearing from guys that are fighting private wars with no backup. So we decided it's time to fight back. We have our sexual integrity support group, which is a confidential space inside the Lion's Den for men who are ready to step into the light and pursue real freedom. This isn't just for guys in crisis, by the way. It's for any man who's tired of the cycle, who's tired of living in secret, who's tired of saying, this is going to be the last time. Look, most guys don't need another app or some rules. They need some brothers to come alongside them to say, you're not the only one. This doesn't define you, and freedom is possible. So look, inside our group, you're going to find a confidential, judgment-free forum to engage and ask questions. You'll have honest conversations without condemnation, and you'll also have a monthly call with a trusted guide. So look, this isn't just about stopping pornography. It's about becoming a man of integrity, a man aligned, a man who lives in freedom, not secrecy. And you don't have to clean yourself up first to come. You just have to step in. So our sexual integrity support group is found inside the Lion's Den. And you can start that today with a 30-day free trial. So if you're ready to stop fighting alone and need that extra support, start your 30-day free trial right now at thelionwithin.us. That's thelionwithin.us, and step inside the Lion's Den.
We have a brand new plan that just released on the Bible app that I want to let you guys know about. It's called I'm Just a Guy Who Feels God is Silent. And there have been seasons in our life where God can feel painfully quiet, right? Prayers seem unanswered, directions maybe feel unclear, and the silence itself can slowly begin to shape how we view him, how we view ourselves, and the future that lies ahead. So this plan is for the man who's wrestling honestly with those moments. Not from the perspective of someone who has everything figured out, but rather from someone learning that faith is often less about hearing God clearly all the time and more about trusting his presence, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. So, guys, this is a 5-day plan. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy it. If you head over to thelionwithin.us/Bible, you'll see it right there. Or just open up the Bible app, search for The Lion Within Us, follow us on the Bible app, and you'll see this plan. I'm just a guy who feels God is silent. Hope you guys enjoy this one.